Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I'm super excited because I love when I get to have male guests on my show, because a lot of times males don't want to be on my show because it's like Refine and Shine. It sounds kind of girly, but I'm super excited because I can't wait for what my guest here today is going to share for us. My guest today is Ryan Schwartz. He's the owner of Schwartz Trial Law in Atlanta, Georgia. Named a Super Lawyers Rising Star from 2019 through 2022, he's built his reputation on being fair and trustworthy, guiding clients through personal injury cases or standing up for defendants in tough criminal cases. So welcome, Ryan. I'm super excited to hear what you have to share today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today.
What I love about getting to know and going through your website and everything is you started in Maryland and then you went to Atlanta, Georgia. And so tell me how you even just got into what got you into becoming a lawyer.
Well, I have kind of a twisty, winding road to becoming a lawyer. I went to college in the Midwest, and then my first career actually was in consulting, and I was in a bunch of accounting, finance type jobs. And I just wasn't happy, and it was not fulfilled, and it just felt very empty and just seemed dead end to me. And I always wanted to do something where I was helping people, and I always knew that at some point I might want to go to law school, and that's kind of what I did, and that was my goal. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to do something where I was helping people, where people could depend on me, and I could help them in some kind of way. So that's kind of the overview.
Well, I really like that because I think that it's kind of what we talk about in the podcast is like sometimes we make these pivots. Sometimes things happen to us that we have to pivot, or sometimes we're just like, are we dying inside? Are we bored? Or what's going on? And we know that we're made for more. And so I love how you went from accounting to becoming a lawyer. And what made you become the type of lawyer that you are? You're a criminal lawyer. And so what made you decide on that type of lawyer?
Well, I do mostly personal injury now. I started my practice about 11 years ago doing just criminal defense. And I slowly segued into doing more personal injury and car accident cases. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And both of those, I still do a little bit of criminal, but mostly injury work. And both of those lets me help people. So that's kind of like I'm fulfilling my goal.
Yeah, I love that. Helping others is what it's all about, right? And making sure that you're giving them the justice that's deserved. So I love that. Talk to me a little bit about what sets you apart from other lawyers. Like how you want to help others, but I think being trustworthy is really important. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I learned a long time ago, and this is one of the benefits I have of not going to law school right out of college and becoming a lawyer right away and having all these life experiences. You realize that you shouldn't be doing this type of work, or the type of work that I'm doing, to make money. I mean, obviously I want to make money, and that is one of the goals and one of the benefits, but you should be in this industry to help people. And that should be the primary focus. Customer service, treating people the way you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. You kind of treat people that way, and you find the client where they're at and help them. I feel like that leads to longer term success. You see a lot of these people out there who, especially personal injury, or these billboard lawyers, or these people who they come out of school and they're just money, 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 money all the time. And they miss the point of why they became a lawyer. It's not for financial gain. It's because you're in a position to help people, and you should utilize that. And I think if you do that, you're gonna reap those rewards down the road. But if you miss the point altogether, I think eventually you're gonna get into trouble.
Yeah, so it's like back to the golden rule, right? That we learned a long time ago.
Right.
Is that, you want to treat others how you would deserve, you expect to be treated, and also help them. And I love that you said it's just not about the financial. Like, yes, we all need money. Money helps us pay for the roof over our head, the food to eat, and all of these other things. But there's just more to that. Like, if you're doing a career just to make money, you can see, and a long term, you're not going to ever be happy. Right? Because you're just chasing money, and then you sell your business to retire, and then you're just unhappy. And so you're going through building these relationships with people and helping them succeed, win their case, help them succeed, and, get compensation for whatever tragedy that they had affect them.
That's right. And I think that's the big difference. When I was in consulting and accounting, you see all these people who, they have private planes and they're, fancy dinners and golf clubs, and they get to travel and they're doing God knows what in their personal life. These people, it's only about the money, and it felt very empty to me. And I think when you're a lawyer and you're in a position to help people, and you can help them in some kind of way, I think that's really great that you have that opportunity and you don't have to answer to anybody else to make that happen.
I like that. I like that. So what made you go from, like you said, you've been in practice for 11 years and now you practice out of Georgia. Have you always been a lawyer in Georgia?
I've only ever been a lawyer in Georgia.
All right. All right. And so what is it much of a difference? I mean, from when you were an accountant, were you in Georgia as well, or Maryland to Georgia?
No, so I started off in Chicago. I actually worked
Oh,
at
okay.
Arthur. If you remember Arthur Anderson and the whole Enron scandal from
Yeah.
2001, that was my first job, and I did consulting, and I then worked at Ernst and Young. Both of these places were just, I mean, horrific places to be. I still can't believe I did this type of work. I mean, it was so empty. And then I actually moved back to Maryland, which is where I'm originally from. And I got a job in that same field. And every company I was at, there was some issue with the company. And I just thought, this is crazy. Someone else is controlling my destiny because someone else is controlling my time, and I have no say. And and I went to night school to get my MBA. I thought, this will help me with law school or something down the road. And it just felt so empty to me. And that and number of other factors was what ultimately led me to go into law school. So.
Well, I think that's really interesting that you were working for like that whole Enron when all that stuff went down. Um, and it's like you think people's, like you said, like everybody else's choices, people's bad choices or the way that they can actually affect your career, or you can lose your job and all of these things. And I can relate deeply to that right now because I'm a federal government employee for my full-time job, and I know that other people's choices can just affect your finances. And I love that you decided, well, I can take control of my destiny by doing something that I choose to help others, and something that I love and enjoy. And I'm sure that there's parts of your job though that are stressful. And so how do you get through those hard days?
Well, I have a dog, and I lean on some of the things that make me happy, like my family, my children. I love to swim. I love to listen to music. Music is my life. My dog. These are the things that are real to me. In this industry, a lot of people get caught up, as I kind of talked about earlier, in the flash, like the fancy cars and going to all the industry dinners and going to the big networking things all the time, and it's like one big party to them, and that's not real. That doesn't matter to me. What matters is like I'm helping people, treating people right, and then I get to enjoy the things that I care about, which are my vinyl collection, or going to concerts, or being with my kids, or playing with my dog, or going out to dinner with my wife, or doing something that's meaningful, that has relevance. So that's how I unwind.
I love that. It's going back to like, what are your core values? And for you, that is family, spending time together with your loved ones. And, you know, we talked before we started recording, like, you just mentioned your dog, which I think is important. Like, I don't think that people understand like the type of love that goes into an animal who cannot communicate back to you. And that you
Right.
could have so much love because no matter what, they always are there to treat you. Like if you have a bad day, they're there to comfort you. If you have a good day, they're there to comfort. Like no matter what, they're there for you. And I think that that's so important. And I did a whole episode just on losing one of my dogs because it so affected me so greatly. So I truly can relate to you with that. And I love that you have like that you're doing physical activity as well. Like going swimming and things like that, spending time with your kids, and then the date night is so important. But you talked about your vinyl collection, and I just love to go there. Is what type of music do you love?
Oh God, I love everything. I easily have 400 vinyl. I have Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Doors. I love Fela Kuti. I love Ali Farka Touré. I love Miles Davis. My Morning Jacket, Black Keys. You name it, I have it. White Stripes. I mean, Allman Brother. I mean, I have my taste is very eclectic. Everything from hip hop to jazz to rock and roll to soul. I mean, I have music is my life, and it has been since I was a kid. It's a very powerful thing, and it's if I couldn't listen to music, I don't know what I would do. So
I love that. Just a little side note, when my son was he's when he was younger, he loved music. He still to this day loves music, but music was what helped him. And they wanted to they diagnosed him with ADHD, but instead of using the medication, we said, hey, if he listens to music on his, like a Walkman phone, it's gonna help him with his studies. And the teacher worked with me, put him in the corner. He got to listen to, like, for him, it was Linkin Park that really helped him stay focused. And it really helped him accelerate in his, he was able to focus, do what he needed to do for his test and stuff. So I can so relate. I know that my husband loves to have music. And for me, I love listening to music. The other day, I was singing really loud and I didn't realize the windows were open, and I'm on my treadmill and I'm singing and singing. My husband's gone. He's like, I just wanted to make sure that the house was okay, because all we could hear is you singing so loud.
right.
Like,
I find, I mean, I love listening to music. I listen to music every night before I go to bed. It's usually jazz or some kind of, another thing I do to relax is meditation. I do transcendental meditation. So I'll listen to like beats and rhythms and drum albums and African beats. It's very soothing and it's very interesting to me. So it definitely calms me down, definitely relaxes me.
what you're doing is you're changing your state, right? You're changing yourself so that you're in a more comfortable state. And I love that you said that you meditate. One of the things I wanted to know, just curious, do you journal as well?
I do not journal. I probably should, but I probably could write a book on all the crazy things that go on with being a lawyer, but I do not journal. Maybe that's
Okay.
something I should do.
No, but I mean, it's up to you. But I just love that you're doing the meditation and that you're helping yourself get into a state so that when you go to sleep at night, that you're not thinking about, like you said earlier, all the crazy things that go on, or that what you see as a lawyer. And you're not thinking about the cases, or like you're getting yourself into calm state so that you can go to sleep peacefully. Do you do a transition too? I mean, you have a tough day at the courthouse, or in the courtroom, and then you go home. Is there something that you do to transition so that you're not taking that, stuff out on your
I,
family?
I, I haven't learned. I haven't learned how to do that yet. I think when you do this type of work, and one of the reasons why I have been successful and I've gotten to the point where I am is because I'm available. I make myself available to clients, especially when I did criminal. Now my practice has grown where I have um, three people working for me doing helping me with the injury work, so they kind of take a lot of that load off. But for me, it's just kind of coming home, sometimes listening to music, playing with my kids. But again, there might be something that pops in my mind, or I get an email and I'm like, oh, let me respond to that. So it never really turns off. It's my days are very much like, it'll be on and then I'll be off, and it'll be on, then I'll be off. So I don't have that, because I don't have that 9 to 5 career, and that
Mhm.
I found over the last 11 years, that's what works for me. Um, Working 9 to 5, and then you're at the behest of some employer, that never worked for me. That is miserable to me. And so I found creating my own schedule, my own flow, that's what works for me. So I have the ability to turn it off. If I'm watching a show with my kids, or I'm out to dinner with my family, or I'm swimming, I'm not necessarily thinking about certain things, because I know the people that work with me, they've got it covered.
Mhm.
So it's that kind of flow for me.
But no,
So
I think that's important. And I love how you said, like working the 9 to 5. And I kind of work the 9 to 5 ish type of job. But when I was in the production plant, I was kind of the same way. Like, no, I had a night shift. So then if you were constantly, you never knew if there was going to be an injury or something happened. You're constantly in that, like you have to be on call, so to speak. And but you also, you've learned to set boundaries because you have people that are able to work for you, and having that team that you can rely on so that you can go swimming and do all these things. It's not like you're saying, no, I got to be by the phone, or you're still making time for your family. And I think
right.
that that's very important. And so I appreciate that. Is there anything that your journey hasn't probably been like you were an accountant, and then you had some tough situations where, like the Enron case, we could probably do a whole episode about that. But um, then you go into the lawyer. Like, did you always have the support of your family while you're doing all these different transitions? And how did that, affect
Well,
you?
well, when I was done college and I was living in Chicago, and I didn't know what I was 22 years old. It was my first job, and I was there. I started the week of 9/11, and then I don't think I was there a month when they announced the whole Enron thing, and I'm like, wait, what's happening? And I think my parents were worried, obviously, what was going on and the direction I was going, and then there was another consulting firm, and there was a situation there where they went under, and I moved over to a different group, and it just felt like I was kind of bouncing around, and I wasn't like fulfilling, I wasn't doing anything meaningful. And these folks that work at these consulting accounting, I mean, it's such a miserable life. I'm amazed that some of these people still do this type of work. But for me, it was miserable. I shouldn't speak for other people, but I felt like my I always knew that it was meant for something more. And then when I met my wife up in DC, and that was kind of like one of the big factors. Well, I better take this seriously. My wife is someone who she helps people for a living. She helps people. She's a speech pathologist by trade. And I thought, well, wait, this is a sign. This is my moment. I should do this. And I had the support of her. She stood by me while I was in law school and I was studying for the bar. And when I had my first job and I started my own firm, and then we had kids. I mean, she was go meet the client, go, you got to take care of this, go, we'll figure it out. So she was always there to, now, not to say that it's not annoying sometimes when my schedule is kind of up and down like that, but definitely had the support of my wife and my family as I built this.
I love that. I love that. I was wondering, there was something that I read in your bio, and I just was kind of curious about that. I think that one, having the support of your family is so important, and that communication is important. But when you were the super lawyer's rising star, what was that about?
Well, that's just a designation. It's a marketing designation. A lot of people, you have to get nominated by a peer. It's usually, it's a marketing gimmick where it's an important recognition that someone nominated you, but then of course they want you to, pay all this money to, do all this stuff. So it was important. It's important to put on your website, but it's definitely not something that like I wasn't honored at a banquet or anything like that. Yeah.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. One of the things that you is so important that I think is, your trustworthiness. Like I love that you talk about like you want to help others. But what is this that personalized attention that sets you apart from other lawyers?
Well, I think a lot of lawyers, they want cases. They want cases, and they treat it like a business. Now, again, it is a business, but I think the essence of the business needs to be like that relationship between the client and making sure they feel comfortable with you, that they can call you, email you, that they can talk to your staff, they can get a hold of you. Whereas a lot of lawyers, you'll talk to clients and they'll say, well, I never actually got to talk to my lawyer. I never even met the lawyer. And I think that's sad. I think that's terrible that someone, you hired that lawyer, that you retain them to represent you in an injury case. And I'm speaking about injury cases right now, not necessarily like criminal cases, but, and the lawyer never sat down with the client. So I think it's really important. And that communication, that relationship, and treating people a certain way, I developed that over time. And I've spoken about this before where, I've been a waiter before. I've worked at a supermarket. I've done volunteer work. I've worked in soup kitchens where you see there's other people out there that might not have the same advantages as you. There's people that have more advantages than you. But I think if you treat people, just be humble, treat them, the right way and do right by them, I think that goes further. And I've proven over the last 11 plus years that doing that attracts people to you, that attracts other lawyers, might refer you out, or other businesses, people you've worked with, not because I'm a brilliant lawyer or a great legal mind. I'd rather have someone who can hustle and communicate with me any day of the week rather than some brilliant legal mind. That does nothing for me. So
Yeah, I understand that. And it's being able to have that, that trustworthiness, that one-on-one conversation, or being able to meet the person in face to face and be able to talk to them and understand, let them hear, giving them that chance to say, what their side of the story is. I know a couple of months ago, I was looking for a lawyer for something. I actually was in a car accident, and every lawyer that I was trying to look for was just you get to fill out a form, and then you know you can't even talk to somebody. It's then they'll call you, and then it's waiting for them to call you, and it was a bunch. And I was like, okay, never mind. I was in a hit and run accident, and it. So I love the fact that you are making time to talk to people and making that time, and you and your team to actually get to know the person and what their story is instead of just being another number, so to speak.
Right. And I think that's, unfortunately, that's the way the industry has worked. And anytime you see someone on a billboard or these people who have thousands of cases coming in a month, there's no way they can, that you're selling a service that doesn't exist. So you're putting on your billboard, I've settled, $10 million. Oh, that's great. That doesn't mean that person who, is scared, has never talked to a lawyer before, doesn't maybe have any family in your area, and they're hiring you because they don't know any better. Like, that's sad for that person. They're almost being victimized the second time because no one is even meeting with them. How do you know that's the right fit? Like, they can work with you. What if the case goes to trial? Like, how do you know that person can feel comfortable around you? And I think it's just important to, not have thousands of cases. I have a lot of cases. I have a lot. And every single one of those cases, I've met with that person, I've spoken with that person on the phone directly. I was the first person, I was the contact. I was the person they called. It wasn't my secretary, it wasn't my paralegal. And, all of those people know who I am. And I think having a smaller caseload and having that interaction, that back and forth with the clients, so they can understand you and you can understand them, that's more important than having thousands of cases at one time.
Yes, I agree, and that they can also it's building that trust in that relationship, and that it's back to the happiness doesn't mean that our success that you have to have like thousands of cases or the numbers that it's not always about the numbers, right? It's how many people have you successfully got to, interact with one on one and help them go through this. What, when they come to a lawyer, when you're coming to a lawyer, it's not because, it's not always good, right? Like you've been hurt, like for what you specialize in, you like, personal injury, you've been hurt and you've got a lot of questions, a lot of things that you're going through, and you wouldn't go to a personal injury lawyer unless you needed you weren't injured, right? And so you help them with all of these things. I think that that's important because it's a very I can't think of the word right now, but it's something it's a hard thing to go through. And you treat the people with respect and humble yourself, and you can relate to what they're going through by the way that you show compassion to them. And I think that goes
Yeah.
back to your core values.
And I think, I've mentioned this in other podcasts and other programs that I've done, but I love this quote and I use this all the time. It's by Maya Angelou. It's people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they won't forget how you made them feel. And I want people to leave the experience with me. Oh, Ryan was a good guy. Yeah, he's a good person. I can text him, I can call him. They might not forget every little. I mean, there's definitely bumps on every case and with every client, but I want people to leave that experience with a positive feeling at the end of the day.
I love that. I love that. I think that that's so important. When you talked about now you have a team of people, how long did it take from your journey? Because, I have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to my show. How long did it take for you to get to, starting your own practice to starting to hire a team and things like that? What was that journey
Uh,
like?
that took me years, and that was something I had to mentally overcome because I like, especially when I started my practice and I did only criminal, so traffic, DUI, misdemeanors, felonies. I went years where when you do criminal, you don't need help. And when I see these criminal firms and they have paralegals and case, I just laugh because I think it's so ridiculous. Like, you don't need that kind of help. You can do it all yourself. But when you start mixing in car accidents and slip and falls and injury cases, and there's a lot that goes on, at some point it got to the point where I was getting these cases and I just couldn't handle them. So I was giving them away to other attorneys. And then I was getting a referral check. And then one day I thought, this is crazy. They're asking for me. They hired me. Why am I giving these cases away? And I had a colleague of mine here in Atlanta who said, you are never going to build your practice unless you have help. and I just bit the bullet, and had a contractor. I had a contractor. He lent me one of his contractors, and then that person, I didn't know what I was doing with some, that person helped me, and I built it up. I have a case management program, and then I realized, wait a second, that the way he's doing things, I know what's going on here. I know how this is working. I don't really like how he's doing it. And then I brought in someone else, and then they that didn't that I liked how they were doing it, but then they couldn't handle bigger caseloads. And then I found, through my networking, I found someone else. And what I have now is a team of people who are really experienced personal injury paralegals, and they know what they're doing. They know the case management program, and I can trust them. And that took me a long time. I didn't hire a paralegal. I probably hired my first paralegal 3 years ago. So like eight years in, took me to get help, like real help. But now I have someone who focuses on getting all the medical records and doing all of that behind the scenes stuff. I have someone else who does a lot of client interaction and pre-litigation, and I have someone else who kind of like helps with litigation and getting filings out and making sure things are flowing properly. So and it's still a work in progress.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I think that's so important because most people, like, one, I want to say, you've been a lawyer for 11 years now, like started your own practice. Most people,
I've had my own practice for 11 years. I've been a lawyer for longer than that.
So having your own practice for 11 years, most people give up. Like, the entrepreneurial journey is so hard, and most people give up after 5 years. I don't even last 5 years, right? And so you've doubled that already, and also now have a team. And I love that you didn't go fast. Like, you didn't just like want to take on everything. And when you knew, like when you were giving away stuff that you probably could be helping others for, who actually wanted to work with you, you had to humble yourself a little bit and like, hey, I need to hire a team, but and you took some time to really go through that. So I love that. I think that that's so important because so many people want to give up when they get overwhelmed, and they just have to realize, like, what is it that they really want to do, and how are they going to like navigate through those situations, or what help can they have, and what do they need help with. And I think that that's so important. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that's a lot of things. A lot of times people don't talk about the hard, right?
Well, I had a lawyer tell me years ago when I started my practice, and he's a successful lawyer here in Atlanta, and he said, you have to be able to ride the ebbs and flows. So there are definitely ebbs and flows, and sometimes I'm up, and sometimes I feel like defeated and down. But I know, based on my experience with all the people, I've represented, I think, over 2,000 people at this point, maybe close to 2,000 people, and a variety of different things. And sometimes it's going well, sometimes I feel like it's not. And you have to be able to manage that. You have to be able to manage all your bills and expenses and things with your family and your kids. And but that's part of being an adult, right? And but I always say it beats working for someone else. It beats working back at a consulting firm or for someone else who controls my day. And I thank God every day I don't have to answer to anybody else. That's more important to me than making millions and millions of dollars. I mean, I would love to, money's great, but having that freedom and that independence is way more important for me.
I think that's so important. And I think that, like, I think that's what everybody actually should want, right? Is just having that independence and having that freedom to be your own boss. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you for all that you've shared with me. I would love to know, like, if people, like, especially since you're in the Georgia, Atlanta area, if people wanted to stay connected with you or to reach out to you, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
Well, my phone number is 678-460-7568. You can follow me on Instagram, Schwartz Trial Law. Also on Facebook, you can find me Schwartz Trial Law. You can go to my website, schwartztriallaw.com.
All right. I'll make sure that I have all those links in the show notes as well. But one of the things I always ask my guests before we wrap up is, what is something, a word, a phrase, an action, a book to read, something that they can do today in order to start to refine and shine?
Whoa, that's a great question. I recently finished, so I do transcendental meditation, and there was a book by the Maharishi, just transcendental meditation. So I encourage people to look that up if you're interested in that. That really has helped me in my life. I probably should meditate more than I do, but that book is a great book. And then anything by David McCullough. I'm really into history, so anything he's written, I love.
All right. I'm going to definitely look into that book that you were talking about for the meditation, because I think that that's something that we all should do. And my husband keeps saying that I do need to meditate a little bit more because I'm so high strung sometimes. And so
Everyone
thank
should
you.
do it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will definitely look into that. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being a guest on here today.
Thanks for having me.